for today's or mostly weekly Vanguard video, I'm gonna do a video on my Loronerol deck. The name has too many O's in it, and it's confusing. I usually never spell it right either. Yeah, so guess we'll get started. So the general gist of this deck is that you have a bunch of set orders, which are song set orders, which are these things down here. And then you essentially, some of them have a on play when they're placed in your order zone skills, but most of the time, I think what's important is they have a skill that happens when they get sung, and when you sing a song, it gets flipped upside down, so you essentially can't sing it again unless you flip it back up, which you can do. And the essential point of it is to have as many face down cards as possible, and then using your grade 3 song, which basically untaps the number of rear guards equal to the number of face down cards prior to flipping it or singing it. So that's generally the just rough idea of how it works. The good thing about this deck is that even though it is a very, very, very old set, the cards, like your ride line cards which search for or set orders, or rather just orders even, have a fail condition. There's cards printed before this and printed after this that don't have fail conditions. The idea is that basically, it's usually when you ride upon them. So when you ride upon, when she's ridden upon, search your deck hand for grade 1 song card, reveal it, put it in your order zone. If you search your deck, shuffle your deck. If you put from hand, draw a card. So essentially, if you have the card in hand, you only have one copy in your deck, you can play it from hand and replace it, unlike some other decks. So it's really good. Which is a good thing because it basically means your ride line, even if it's a bit slower than I would like, in the fact that both the grade 1 and 2 are when ridden upon. So you have to be really careful when guarding for some things, which we'll get into later. But I really like how they're actually not bad, because this was back when they printed foil cards. I have a foil ride line, it's great. And the ride line's actually good enough I don't have to worry about placing it at any point in the future. And then yeah, so with the actual Vanguard itself, we are playing the old one because the old one is better, and I'll explain that soon. So, she has an act where you can counterblast one, choose a song, face-up song, and sing it. And then she has a condition of when she attacks, if you have 2 or more face-down cards, you can choose a face-up song and sing it, and until end of that battle, your opponent cannot call sentinels from hand to guard circle. So basically she has a guard restrict, and can sing 2 songs a turn if you've already sung 2 songs before she attacks. That's the key thing. We'll look at the new one temporarily. So this is the new one we got. So it's printed, actually let's look at dates. Yeah, 2001, she was printed, like the first one's 2001, it's now 2005, and the new one was 2003. But yeah, okay, so basically she was dress up, what basically means she, in pretty much every single situation she counts the old one. So if you're searching your deck for her or whatever, you can find her. She does, but she does also have a separate name. Yeah, and like it's not like a skill when she's placed on like Vanguard slot, you get the name, she just always has it. Yeah, so basically when you place her in Vanguard, you can look up top 5, choose a grade 3 or less unit card and call it. So she's good in that you'll gain cards, right? Every time you ride her, you're gaining a card. When she attacks, you sing a song. So she only sings once, but there's no condition on her on a song attack song. Upsides, downsides, right? And then if your opponent's grade 3 or greater, so she has a restriction, which sort of sucks, so doesn't work going second. Soul Blast, grade 3 card with Loronerol, his card name, which basically means you can't, there's no way to put one into Soul unless you get really lucky on a Soul Charge thing, and you don't play Soul Charge things in this deck. You can only do a grade on turn 4, so also, if you do not find a Persona ride, she doesn't do anything. Until end of that battle, this unit gets +1 drive, which is different, and your opponent cannot call sentinels from hand. So she has the same guard restrict, but the condition in a way is harder. So we'll just go over why. So basically what happens is usually your very first grade 3 turn, the only song you sing is your grade 1 one, which just gives your Vanguard 5k power and you draw a card. It's not the best, but it's fine, you just sing it. And then from turn 2 onwards, you basically, with the original Loronerol, you counterblast, just sing this song, which is basically, it gives you your Vanguard critical. So you have 2 crit, right? And then on attack, you sing this one. Basically, yeah, so this is the one that restands. So your first turn, you'll be restanding 2 Vanguards, right? Or 2 rear guards, sorry. And for every rear guard you restand, you get 10k power. So basically, why the original one is the best, ignoring everything else, you basically on your 4th turn, no matter what happens, assuming you find all your orders, you are going to be attacking with a guard restrict, at least the plus 20k power, and plus 1 crit. So essentially, you have the guard restrict, so reason that you want to actually guard, and then you also have the stuff that makes it harder to guard around the guard restrict. If you don't have the plus power, they can just guard normally and don't care. So that's sort of thing. Plus, you're also getting your extra attacks per turn as well, your extra rear guard attacks. Now, with the new one, basically, with the actual skill, right? So you're making a choice. You get guard restrict, right? So let's assume all the conditions are met, right? You get your guard restrict, which is great. But you have a choice. Do we make it harder to guard and also get 2 more attacks, which is a no-brainer? You almost would never use the 2 at this point. Or do we make it that they want to guard? And no, it's kind of, you'd almost never use a grade 2 song. But you do get plus 1 drive. But when you think about it, so you're actually gaining another card. So she actually gains 2 cards once you get your Persona Rad turns, right? But yeah, so you have a chance of getting power or a chance of getting crit compared to a guaranteed chance of power and crit. So she just isn't anywhere near as good. So going to the actual deck itself, so obviously, so grade 1 we've read that. The grade 2 is exactly the same, so when it's written upon, search for grade 2 order, song order with the same conditions and stuff. But she also, if you have a face-up song, she gets power on Vanguard. So she's 15, so you get a 15k attacking Vanguard when you're grade 2. Now obviously we have the grade 3, which we've covered already. Then the deck has 3 Persona rides, which is good. Obviously I'm running front triggers because you're restanding your rear guards. It's good to give them power as well. Then I've got 1 of each of the good effect heal triggers, although honestly I think these days it's almost better to just run normal heals. 8 crits, and then we have the blue over trigger, mostly because I like it. Obviously the lyrical one isn't bad, but then it's also, you have to get it early to make it really good. So the red one is usable, and I don't really like the purple one in this deck because I don't like playing over cards, because it feels like you're not actually, you're healing a card to hand, right? And then you're playing a card over a card to get an extra attack. So you could get 6 attacks for 1 turn, but then you're down a card. Compared to like if you had an empty slot, for whatever reason, you're gaining a card basically. Yeah, this is just, you gain a card, you gain a crit, so 9 crits in the deck, which is good. Yeah, I just generally do like this over the others in this deck. If you could run the red one, yeah, I think a red one is a possibility. And honestly, the lyrical one isn't that bad either. And then before we get into other units, I might just go over song competition, not competitions, compositions. So I've got one copy of a grade 1, which is usually pretty good. Yeah, so basically the one concern about this is I'm only running one copy. I think generally you only want to run one copy, otherwise you have too much cards taking up space. But you do have to be concerned, do we take damage? This deck does not need counterblast until you get to turn your once you're on grade 3. So generally, if you can, you want to guard as many attacks as you can, as you can't really risk actually taking damage. I think if you obviously once you have this if you have this in hand, you generally don't care as much. I run 2 copies of a grade 2. This also means usually you only actually need 1 copy of this. So the second copy is basically for assurance, or insurance rather, that just in case you do take 1's damage, you still have the second. It is a risk though as well, but you only basically search from deck on your 3rd turn. So if you're going first, it's even worse if you're going second actually, but if you're going first, you basically have to worry about at least 2 attacks going through, or at least 2 Vanguard attacks, potentially rearguard attacks as well. So I think generally you can risk, basically, if you haven't seen any damage, you can potentially risk taking a hit and just hope you don't get crit and they both go in. I mean, yeah, but if one has gone to damage, you basically can't take any more damage as you cannot risk it. And you have 3 copies of grade 3, which is fine. I don't think the games will go long enough that you'll be using 2, or more than 2, so you only really need 2. But it's not too bad. I think 3 is a good number, because you can search them out now, so you don't have to worry about actually drawing them, as you previously had to worry about. Yeah, but actually the one thing I haven't mentioned about the grade 2 is that it has a condition that you draw a card if your opponent is grade 3. So basically it's so bad because every other settler these days like this would make you just draw a card. Like Mitchu auto can rules just draw your cards, which is nice. So it would be nice if this could be errated, you draw a card. But basically it does mean there's a potentially advantage in card draw if you go second. But in the current format you do not want to go second, and I'll probably explain that after I've gone through the rest of the deck. So if you do have 1 copy of this in hand, you generally always want to set your deck for the other, and then this one you can just play once your opponent is grade 3, assuming you have enough of the grade 3 in your order zone already, and that way you can at least draw a card when playing it. So essentially the way I see it is if you are going first, you're grade 3 now, and you've ridden to grade 3 and you have essentially a way to get this in hand, or you have it in hand and you have one of these in hand. You want to search your deck for one of these and then play this for turn, and just not. This one has an ability where you can flip up another order card face down, card face up. You almost, the first one of each play you don't do that at all, because you need to get your critical mass of face down cards. Once you get 2 face down, then you can start considering, once you're more than 2 face down, you consider turn 1 face up. Usually you'll go, okay, so usually the turn structure would go for singing is first grade 3 turn you sing this, your grade 1 song, your second grade 3 you sing this and then one of these, and then your next grade 3 turn, if you survive, you'll then play another one of these and turn your grade 2 face up and then sing it, and then do basically the same thing. So every time you play a grade 3, you sing a grade 2. There is considerations where you might want to flip up another grade 3 if the game's actually going to go that long, and then just not have a grade 3, not have a grade 2 crit, which is probably the way to go, as you always want to get the extra attacks. And one more thing to mention about the grade 3 is her guard restricts happens even if you don't sing a song. So once you're out of songs, if the game's actually run that long, or you've had bad luck and some have gone to damage, you can always get your guard restrict, which isn't ideal, like you're not getting guaranteed crit. But back to the actual deck, I think we've talked about things too much. So we have, okay, yeah, so for the original grade 2 that was printed back in 2021. Once per turn when she attacks, if you're sung a song this turn, she gets 5k power, and then you may counterblast and discard a card to draw 2 cards. So she is a good way to just gain cards, issue a bunch of cards you don't need and drop. Then we got the one we got back in 2023. Basically when she has the condition that if you have 2 face down cards, she gets plus 10k power, which is nice. And then if your persona, this one's a bit confusing, but basically she has a skill which, when this is placed on rearguard, you can put a card from hand into soul, search your deck for up to 1 song card, reveal it, put it into hand, and shuffle your deck. Then she has an additional condition as if your persona opens turn, you may play this with Soul Blast instead of putting a card from hand into soul. She doesn't have any restrictions, so you can search for songs at grade 2. So this could be potentially a way around taking the song as damage. Is once you get to grade 2, you can play her, search for your grade 2 song, then you no longer have to worry about taking it as damage, which I think is definitely something you probably want to do, especially if you're going second. And then we have the latest grade 2 we got, which is, she also has the same face down order condition at the bottom. Her main skill, which makes her good, is when she's placed other than during battle phase, if you're a Vanguard Loronerol, and your song was put into auto zone this turn, Energy Blast free, look at top 5, choose 1 card with a different name from this unit, and call it to rearguard. So it's a good way of finding cards as well. If I had to drop any grade 2s from a deck, I'd probably drop the original one. If she's only ever going to be a 15k, ignoring other power boosts, because she can only get her power boost once per turn. But she does find a bunch of cards. And yeah, for grade 1s, obviously we just have just 4 PGs as tradition. We have 3 Yukias. I think 3 is a decent number to find. And then we have 2 copies of every other grade 2 we have. So we have this one, she's one of the new ones, where essentially when your Vanguard sings a song, you can Energy Blast free and grab a song from drop and put it into hand. She actually allows you to discard song cards for writing, which is kind of good. You can just get them back. And then we have this one, which basically, if she's in your back row and a unit gets stood by your card's effect, with Loronerol as Vanguard, you can stand her as well. So she's basically stand twice, which gives you a bit of extra power. Honestly, I'm thinking about potentially dropping her for more copies of the other grade 1s. But she's a decent way to get a bit more power on your early turns. And then one of the best cards, this girl who basically, when she boosts, if you Vanguard sang the song, she gets 5k power, so she's basically 11k booster, which isn't ideal, but you take what you can get. Even if this is the back row, essentially if she's boosting your Vanguard, you can countercharge 1. But yeah, that's basically the deck. I do want to put, if I was playing this, I only just got the ladder, like Angel Bracing ladder, which I would probably play. I'd probably take out one of her and just put it in instead. I guess we could just search that actually. Yeah, so it's basically, it's a Regalis piece. When you play it, put it into Soul, which we don't really care about. What's confusing is it gives you 2 different effects until the end of your opponent's next turn, and one of them only applies during your turn. But yeah, so during your turn, all your Vanguards get 5k power. But the main one is why I'd play it. Basically, can't be chosen by effects and cannot be put other than rearguard, and then on the rearguard slot by your opponent's effects. So they can't retire units, they can't bind your units, and they can't target your units. And then the other card I really like in this deck, which I'm not playing currently, is this horse skill. I really like this card. Basically, the main issue is she's only 9k. She's a grade 2 that's only 9k, but when she's placed on your guard circle, you can Soul Blast 1, and then she gets plus 5,000 shield for each of your cards in your auto zone. Usually we have like 3 or 4 songs, so she'll be at least 25 shield. It's really hard to fit it in though, in the main, mostly because there's just too much utility stuff you need to use. But there's another version of the deck I've seen someone use who basically runs the set order that we got in Festival Collection, this one. She basically runs 3 copies of this, and then 3 copies of a card who searches for it, which basically at the beginning of your battle phase, choose one of your back row units and gets boost. The idea of the deck is you only play grade 2s, and they all get boost. So you find, you have 6 slots dedicated to that. So it's basically a Yukia, and you get some extra slots to fill around. Because they weren't playing her for some reason, which is a bit weird in my opinion, but yeah. And then at that point, you play your armors. If you want to use it as a boost, that's fine, because a 9k booster is not bad compared to a 9k attacker. And then you're gonna have like at least 3 more. So you're probably gonna be like, you're gonna be 40k guard. And her cost Soul Blast doesn't matter because you literally don't use soul on the deck. So one other way to play the deck is to run the new grade 3 as your grade 3 in your right deck, which basically means your first turn at grade 3 you get the extra card from riding, and in the grand scheme of things you still get to sing 1 order. I used to do that, but the main issue is if you don't find your original Loronerol to ride over for a Persona ride, your deck doesn't do anything. You just spin your wheels doing nothing, and there's no way to activate your guard restrict because it requires having a Loronerol in your soul to soul blast out. You can technically put it in through Researcher, but at the same time you're like, do I put this in now to activate this thing, or do I Persona right next turn? So that's sort of why I stopped doing it, but still it probably is the way to go to make the deck more ideal. I just one bad experience and I'm out basically. But yeah, so that's basically the overview of how the deck works, other potential cards I've seen used in the deck. The last thing I'd like to mention about is power level, like where does the deck stand in the current meta. I think the actual effects themselves are good, like the card advantage and stuff you can get from a newer support is fairly good. Like these 2 cards, the Energy Blast cards, basically help the deck quite a bit. But the issue is, like, you have to go first to have any chance of doing anything before you die. Because you can basically, your only chance of killing someone is essentially once you get your 2 face down orders, so your second grade 3 turn, you might be able to kill them with your guard restrict. Maybe. If you're lucky, right? Against some decks you might struggle against that. And the main issue is you generally with the current meta, you will not survive 2 opponents' grade 3 turns. Unless you're very lucky, and if you do, you probably have almost no resources left. You have to guard with everything. So if you're going second, you're not actually going to make it to your second grade 3 turn. One thing I think could fix the deck is if we got essentially a new Vanguard, which did word for word this card text from original, and had like a divine skill would let you sing another song. Yeah, so I think the deck would actually be relatively competitive if you could, on your first grade 3 turn, actually activate her guard restrict by having 2 face down songs. I think divine skill would probably be the easiest way to deal with it, as it's just always to be divine skill. It's not a powerful divine skill compared to like all the others, but it's a simple once per game effect, which makes sense. Like, it's an effect you only really care about using once per game, and it means it's not going to potentially break things if you can use it more than once per game. It also could just be a free song. If for some reason you only want to sing 1 song, you don't want to use Counterblast, you can at least sing a song for your divine skill if you needed to. Yeah. So I think that would probably fix the deck, and other than that I think it's mostly okay. But yeah, that is the end of this video, and thank you for coming, and I will see you all next week with something else, hopefully. We'll figure it out. And make sure you like and subscribe as well. But yeah, and also just comment below if you've had any other experience playing, I guess, any deck from this era in the current standard. Because it'd be interesting to see how you do with the older decks, because that's my one main concern about Vanguard currently, is the older decks are kind of struggling a bit. Even if they can function, they function too slowly.